r/ask Reddit. What was a fact taught to you in school that has been disproven in your lifetime? A version of the food pyramid got an awful lot of brain time when I was in elementary school. You need to eat 4 pounds of corn a day. Wash it down with 1.5 L of milk. Tell your parents. What are we, cattle? Moo. Well, I suppose it's useful for telling you what is easiest for the USA to produce for export. More like which subsidies are the best lobbyists. That thing was horribly skewed by food industry lobbying. I honestly think if it was possible to pinpoint who came up with it, those people should be charged with corruption and causing bodily harm in several million cases. Seriously, over the last 40 years those misleading guidelines probably indirectly caused the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people and physical issues for millions worldwide. You should read In Defense of Food. There's a section that gets into the massive health advice shifts pushed by the government and the effects those have had on the nation's health. It includes a discussion about a government nutritional panel drafting dietary goals for the United States and amending it quickly when getting pushback from red meat lobbies, in particular, and the subsequent focus on nutrients, which don't have lobbies, instead of foods. It's pretty fascinating. When I was in 3rd or 4th grade we were taught cursive. The teacher insisted that all my high school teachers would automatically fail any papers that weren't in cursive and that everything done in the adult world isn't printed. By the time I got to high school everything had to be typed and the only requirement for cursive I've seen in the adult world is things that require my formal signature. I can't even read or write in cursive anymore. Times New Roman is the new cursive. There are flavor sections to the tongue. To add to this, if you tilt your head back and pretend you're shaking a salt shaker into your mouth, you will actually taste salt. Taste like dongs. Doesn't work if you currently have a dong in your mouth. That is true for so many things sadly. I blame this for my failures in life. The funniest part of this whole thing is that this is commonly used as an early scientific experiment for young school children. They use droppers filled with salt water, sugar water, etc. and try to drop them on different sections of the tongue to see if the subject tastes the flavors in question. So we have thousands of school children performing this little experiment and yet few of them nor the science teachers instructing them ever challenge the premise of the experiment itself. It's a great demonstration of confirmation bias. That people would randomly approach me and give me free drugs. Edit. Most karma I've ever got lol. And get mad if you rejected said drugs. Yes, and they were called drug pushers. Hey kid, come over here. Have some drugs. It's actually much harder to score than I ever thought it would be. I was taught that in college you will spend all of your study time in a library reading and researching using books and reference catalogs. The internet was evil and full of lies and not a valid resource for academic research. During the height of the AIDS scare in the mid to late 80s, one of my health teachers taught us that HIV could be spread by simply hugging or touching someone infected with it. I learned that when humans were still hunter-gatherers, one of the ways they hunted was digging deep holes in the ground, setting up with spikes and then luring mammoths in those holes. Years later I saw a little article in the newspaper that this wouldn't have been possible, simply because it's not exactly easy to dig a deep enough hole in the ground without modern tools. When was this? I was always taught that early humans were endurance hunters. We'd literally chase down our prey until it dropped dead of exhaustion. Humans are some of the best long distance runners on the planet, and I was taught what you just said as well, but I can't recall where. No one was actually burned at the stake during the Salem witch trials, while in England condemnation by the church actually did lead to some burnings. In the New England colonies the more secular laws called for hanging on suspicion of witchcraft. They also crushed a guy. More weight. Giles Corey was one tough nut to crack. You won't walk around with a calculator in your pocket. I had a female teacher in grade 11 health teachers that guys can't pee with their erection. I told her she was wrong and she argued with me. Source. Done it. Why? I believe it comes from the knowledge that the passageway for semen and urine can't both be open at the same time. This stops you from being able to pee and cum at the same time. This of course doesn't mean you can't be erect while peeing, as I have video evidence to prove a friend wrong. Why the duck would she argue with you about that? What would she know about it better than someone who actually has a penis? Also, for extra confirmation, I have peed with a boner many times. That it's impossible for girls to be colorblind. In 8th grade science, my teacher started showing our class those circles made of different colored dots. If your vision is normal, you see a number. If you're colorblind, you either don't see a number or you see a different number. When I started calling out different numbers than others in my class, he started trying to stump me. He couldn't believe I was colorblind. He was shuffling through all his cards with the circle dot numbers. He just about refused to believe it. This was in 1996. I've learned since that it's still incredibly rare for girls to have colorblindness. But we're out there. I am one of you. People still refuse to believe me when I tell them that I'm colorblind. Because like you said, girls supposedly can't be colorblind. That or they'll point to an orange cone and say, if you're colorblind then what color is that? Grown adults doing and saying this shit. Yup, dumb. For me it's subtle. I'm not too bad off. People think I can only see black and white. Grown-ass adults. Like you said, shopping for paint is hell though. Hell. You can see the Great Wall of China from the moon. Not only that, but it's the only human structure that's visible from space. No it isn't. Cities are. To be clear for others, the Great Wall is far too skinny to be seen even from low Earth orbit. Well, you can see the moon from the Great Wall of China, so that's something. That things you do bad in school go on your permanent record. That chewing gum will stay in your stomach for years if you'll swallow it. You made me swallow my gum. That's going to be in my digestive system for 7 years. You punched the highlights out of her hair. You're incorrigible. I don't know the meaning of the word. Blood inside the body is blue. Did they actually teach that in school? Hilarious. Yes, in fact many people still believe this to be true. They say if you look at the veins in your wrist, you can see blue blood. I don't know when exactly it was disproven, but I was taught that Hebrew slaves built the pyramids. There've been several papers in the past 15 years essentially proving they were built by middlemen, architects, servants and were compensated for their services in grain, beer, etc. Basically one of the earliest documented times someone went, I'll give you beer if you help me move my stuff. There will be pizza, too, but I won't get around to even ordering it until you're all finished and standing around exhausted. They were built, in fact, by unpaid interns who were using this great opportunity to gain real insight into what it's like in a working environment. That cracking your knuckles will give you arthritis. You just reminded me that my knuckles need a satisfying crack. Was very careful not to crack my knuckles because of this. Stodde I learned got ducking arthritis so didn't really win. That you won't have a calculator with you all the time. Beach, I have a whole computer in my pocket with access to all the world's information. And porn. Our brains cannot heal. I was in the final class for my psych major, psychology physiology 2, and the professor spent a fair amount of the first class apologizing to us, as we had gotten to the point that enough research had gathered to show that brains do indeed heal. He said he didn't, therefore, know how much of the information he would be giving us over the semester was going to hold up as accurate, nor what we had been taught over the previous 4 years. Psychology is really like 75 years behind other medical fields. Yo. All medical and physiological sciences are rapidly evolving. There's a reason that basically all medical professionals are lifelong learners and need to keep up with the literature and take courses and attend conferences and such continuously. Our knowledge of the human body is in many ways way behind other scientific fields. But to be fair, living organisms are incredibly chaotic and the mechanisms are super complicated. Much of the geography I was taught in school ended up being wrong while I was still in school. Now a few borders moving or countries renaming themselves on the far side of the world would not matter so much. But I went to school in Germany in the 80s and 90s. My parents paid good money for a world atlas for my geography lessons that I was supposed to use for several years. The next year the publisher came out with a revised atlas with a little German flag on it to indicate that this one now showed a united Germany among other things. Eggs are good for you. Eggs are bad for you. Some eggs are good for you, but not too many. Eat all the eggs you can. Eggs are bad for you again. Eggs are good for you again. etc, etc, etc. When I was a lad I ate 4 dozen eggs every morning to help me get large, and now that I'm grown I eat 5 dozen eggs, so I'm roughly the size of a barge. If you be nice to people, people will be nice to you. This is my highest rated Reddit comment and it got gold. What the duckle mayo. There are 9 planets. My very educated mother just served us 9 pizzas. My very educated mother just served us nachos. Washington and that damn cherry tree. He had 2 sets of testicles. That you will fail high school if you don't learn to write in cursive. Didn't learn cursive. Failed high school. Checkmate. You need to drink 8 glasses of water a day, or else you'll become severely dehydrated. What happened is that someone measured the amount of water that someone consumes in one day, including the water found in fruit, other drinks, etc. He wasn't even saying that this is what we need. It's just the amount of water we get on average. Go to the best college that you can get into regardless of the cost, because your career earnings will always be enough to cover it. Career? You mean the series of jobs you jump back and forth between every 2 years? P. Astronomer here. When I was in elementary school we learned there were no other planets beyond our solar system and they were super rare. We now know that thanks to Kepler and other missions that statistically all stars have planets. The reason for thinking they are rare BTW is there is a state of planetary evolution that theoretically couldn't be explained. Think going from clumpy chunks of material to boulder chunks kind of thing. Might be a different stage. Can't remember 100%. It turns out we still can't explain how this stage works theoretically. We have just found planets everywhere instead. Beyond that I remember the discovery of the Kuiper belt in 1992 past the planet Pluto. The beginning of the end of my very educated mother just served us 9 pizzas. The food pyramid. The food pyramids weren't built by Jewish slaves, either. Christopher Columbus discovered America. He did discover the continent to the powers at the time though. Leif Erikson was the first European on the continent, but what he did was largely forgotten to time. Had a substitute science teacher once say that bumblebee flight violates the laws of physics. No it doesn't. The US will be switching to the metric system soon. I before E except after C. And in cases of A like in neighbor and way, and on weekends and holidays and all throughout May, and you'll always be wrong no matter what you say. Growing up I went to a small private church school, and they basically taught us that not everything in science could be trusted, because science said the earth was millions billions of years old but according to the Bible it was only about 6,000 years old, and just other stupid shit they tried to tell us in regards to science. It was actually crazy. Growing up I never really liked science so much because of how bad they made it seem. And then I got to high school and loved my science classes the most. It's so fascinating. And I just graduated with my biology degree this past spring. And now I just laugh at the things they tried to tell us as kids. Don't trust people who actually test what we believe. That brains do not generate new neurons after birth. This hasn't been disproven really. It's just an oversimplification that was never corrected until I read about it on my own. In elementary school I was taught that there were 3 states of matter. In high school I was taught that there are 4 states: solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. Then I read about Bose-Einstein condensates and realize that barely even scratched the surface and there's over 20 plus that have been discovered. A lot of educated people aren't aware of this I found. Simply because unless you go into a science field it probably won't affect you one bit. Still, I think it would be nice if it was at least mentioned in passing for the nerds like me who would care. Your friends aren't always going to be there for the answers. I have the collective knowledge of the world in the palm of my hand. Still no friends, though. That insulin producing cells in the pancreas are gone for good once they are destroyed by type 1 diabetes. New research shows that they do get reproduced by the pancreas, but the autoimmune response destroys them again straight away. There is ongoing research into how to turn this autoimmune response off, with some headway being made with a tuberculosis vaccine. Saying stop it, I don't like it stops people. Just ignore the bully. Nope. Stand up and fight, even if you lose. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.